going everyone? Today we're going to be removing the SRAM Eagle Crankset. I'm going to be doing a tutorial
on how to remove it.
Tools that you're going to need for the job are an 8mm Allen key, a 2mm Allen key, and these aren't really tools but a nice filthy rag just to clean any dirty grease off the spindle. Speaking of grease, definitely use some grease. This is Park Tools HPG1 high performance grease. Really good stuff. I use that on nearly all the parts on my bike. And then you're gonna get yourself just a standard cleaner. I use Muck Off. It's really good stuff. Just to clean any dust and dirt away from your bottom bracket and your crankset. I'd definitely recommend getting some shop towel or some kitchen roll, whatever you have, just to wipe your greasy hands on and to put all the parts on. So we're going to start on the non-dry side of the bike, and as you can see here up on the crank we have this sort of plastic spacer thing, and in that plastic spacer there is actually a 2mm bolt. So using your 2mm Allen key, you're just going to undo that. You don't have to take the bolt out, just loosen it enough so that your spacer thing can move freely. Now what you want to do, you want to turn it anti-clockwise until it stops, which is there. Once you've done that, you're now ready to move on to the drive side of the bike. I don't recommend trying to undo this bolt in the stand because it can be really tough. So what I'm doing now, I have the bike on the ground, just sitting on the rear wheel, just to hold it up, and I've slackened the chain because we're going to need to remove the chain later on. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my left hand and place it on the non-drive side crank here, with this drive side crank facing forwards, and I'm going to locate the Allen key into the bolt just like that, make sure it's located properly, and I'm going to pull up with the left hand crank, the non-drive side crank, and push down on the Allen key on the drive side. If you're removing your crankset for the first time, it can be really difficult to undo because it's tightened to 54 Newton meters. Now I definitely recommend a torque wrench. Unfortunately for me, I don't have one. I'm looking at getting one, but whenever I get a chance, I'm gonna bring this to my local bike shop, get him to tighten it back up for me. So left hand on the non-drive side crank, you're gonna pull up, and at the same time you're gonna push down on your Allen key, and it should just crack open that bolt. Now we have the bolt cracked open. Now I'd advise you loosen this about halfway, it doesn't have to be exact, and just take the chain off as so. Gently pop it down there, as we're going to be removing the drive side crank. Now as we do this, we're going to take it off, and the left hand crank is going to start spinning, not the whole way around, but it won't come out. You might have spacers inside, so just keep note of that, and one spacer on the drive side, so I have to note that. Remove the chain, let the chain dangle there nice and freely, and we are now ready to just pop out the non-drive side crank. So with this, you just want to grab the crank, just loosely hold it just so it doesn't go flying off everywhere, and you want to get your hand and just firmly push against it like that. Any spacers, take them off. As you can see, this slotted into place very well. So spacer, keep note of what orientation they went on, so I know that the SRAM sign and the dub sign is facing outwards, not inwards to the bearing, so I have to keep note of that. Now all we're going to do is just watch out for any spaces on the non-drive side and just pull it out like that, And there you go, your crankset's out. Now that you have the crankset out on shop towel or kitchen roll, just orientate them. So I got the drive side spacer with the drive side crank, that way I know I'm not going to forget it. And then over here I have non-drive side crank. Now that it's out of the bike, it's a good chance to have a look inside at your bearings. Just give them a feel, rolling nice and smooth. As you can see, no moisture, that's only grease inside. So I won't need to put any grease on the spindle because I had this recently taken out to clean it. But if you're taking this out for the first time, just give it a nice inspection. If it's completely dry and dusty, I'd recommend taking this off. It just unwinds like this. Take it off, spray it with some sort of cleaner, clean all the dust off it, put it back together, re-grease it. I highly recommend this Park Tool HPG1 high performance grease. Really good stuff that. I use it on nearly every single part of my bike. Just give your chainring a nice inspection. Inspect the teeth. Teeth are pretty fine on this one. Now if you want, you can actually use a Torx bit, T25, just to take these screws out, take the actual ring off itself and give it a really deep clean. You don't need to do that though, only if it's really dirty. And then you're gonna clean the spacer. Just like that. So again, if it's out for the first time, you'll need to put a bit of grease on your bearing. These are press fit, so I can't take them out without a special tool. But before you do that, you're just gonna clean any grit on it. As you can see, there's a bit of grit here, but nothing that would cause creaking. I managed to fix that problem the last time I took it out, and it hasn't creaked since, so that's brilliant. Any dust around here, it should be fine. Don't see how it would make its way into the bearing, but just give your bearings a turn. That's pretty smooth to me. I'm quite happy with that actually. That's pretty clean. So now reassembling the crankset. As you can see, this is pretty well greased up since the last time I serviced it, so I don't need to put any more grease on it or clean it. So what you're gonna do is take non-drive side crank and just gently locate it into that bearing like so, and just give it a gentle tap and it'll come through just like that. Just make sure it's all the way through. And now you want to get your spacers, if you have any spacers. As you can see, I have one spacer. So at the start I remembered that the SRAM logo and dub logo were facing away from the bearing, which means I know that that is the correct way to put it on. It should just click into place just like that, and that is staying on there. Now you're going to get your drive side crank. Now it's pretty hard to mess this up, but it is possible. Just going to get them nice and straight, and what you're going to do is you're going to locate your Allen key and just start turning clockwise, and that should start pulling the crank on once they start getting threaded. So it might take a few goes, but I think I've got it now. Yep. So snip that up like so. Snip that up tight and get your chain like that. Try not to scratch anything because everyone hates scratches. especially me. Put the chain back over. Now we're not gonna put the chain back on or tighten the chain or anything. We're just gonna leave that hanging because we might need to take this out in case it's not put back on properly, but most of the time it will be put back on properly. So now we're gonna flip the bike around in the stand and go back on to the non-drive side. And now that we have the bike turned around in the stand, just gonna locate your 8mm Allen key back into the drive side and just try and get it as tight as you can by hand. We're actually gonna take this back out the stand and tighten it on the floor. Again, if you have a torque wrench, definitely use a torque wrench. I don't have one, so I'm just gonna tighten it up safely. Now, gonna get your 2mm Allen key, and what you want to do is you want to tighten this up clockwise with a little plastic thing until it stops, which is there, and then spin the cranks like so. Now you might not be able to see this, but this is actually located in a pretty difficult spot, so the camera might not pick it up, but you're going to get your 2mm and just nip that bolt up tight again. So just nip it up tight. It doesn't have to be really tight. Now what we're going to do is just reset the derailleur like so, and there we have it. Your cranks are back on. Before we go out shredding, we're going to put the bike on the floor and just put all our weight down into the drive side bolt just to tighten it down fully. Again, if you have a torque wrench, use a torque wrench, tighten it up to 54 Newton meters. Locate the Allen key in like that and just push down on it while getting our right hand and pushing down on the crank to get it decently tight. It's pretty tight. So again, I'm gonna get that checked. So there you go, that is how you take out your crankset for SRAM GX Eagle or any Eagle range. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, turn on post notifications. And yeah, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you next time.